murder of Kathy Hobbs is a tragic and haunting case that remains in the annals of true crime as a chilling example of both the fragility of life and the dangers that lurk unseen. On July 23, 1987, 16-year-old Kathy Hobbs was brutally murdered in Las Vegas, Nevada, under circumstances that have continued to intrigue investigators and haunt those who knew her. Kathy was an intelligent and sensitive teenager who had a deep love for books and a tendency to worry about life and mortality far more than most kids her age. She had an intuitive fear that she would not live to see adulthood, a thought that seemed to plague her mind. She had even written letters expressing her fear of dying young, an eerie premonition that would tragically come true. On the night of her disappearance, Kathy had just finished her sophomore year of high school and was preparing for a major life change. Her family was moving from Las Vegas to Seattle. This was an emotionally charged period for her, as she was leaving behind the only home she had known for years. She spent the evening with a close friend, saying her goodbyes, and then headed home. Kathy lived with her mother, who was supportive and caring, but they had different personalities. Her mother was practical, while Kathy was dreamy and introspective. The two had recently been discussing the move, and Kathy was reluctant, uncertain about leaving the familiar comfort of Las Vegas. On that fateful night, Kathy walked home alone. It wasn't an extremely long walk, just a few blocks from her friend's house to her home. However, she never arrived. At some point during that short journey, she vanished into the night. When Kathy failed to return home, her mother became increasingly worried. It wasn't like her to disappear without a word. As the hours passed, her mother contacted the authorities and reported her missing. Initially, police weren't overly concerned. Teenagers sometimes ran away or stayed out late without notifying their parents. But Kathy wasn't that kind of girl, and soon it became clear that something was terribly wrong. A few days later, on July 27, 1987, Kathy's body was found in the desert outside Las Vegas. She had been brutally murdered. Her remains showed signs of severe trauma, and it was clear that she had suffered a violent death. The police launched an immediate investigation, but there were few clues to go on. Investigators quickly realized that Kathy had likely been abducted while walking home. There were no signs of a struggle along her route, suggesting she may have been lured into a vehicle or forced inside at gunpoint or knife point. The location where her body was found was remote, indicating that the killer had taken significant steps to dispose of her remains far from immediate discovery. Autopsy results showed that Kathy had suffered blunt force trauma to the head. The manner of her murder was brutal and calculated, leading investigators to believe that the perpetrator was someone with experience or a history of violent crime. The case baffled authorities. There were no immediate suspects, and no witnesses had come forward to report seeing anything suspicious on the night she disappeared. The random nature of the crime made it even more difficult to solve. The police explored various theories, including the possibility that Kathy had been targeted by a serial killer. As the investigation continued, a chilling revelation emerged. A man named Michael Lee Lockhart, a notorious serial killer, was later linked to Kathy Hobbs' murder. Lockhart had an extensive history of brutal crimes across multiple states. He was known for his violent attacks on young women and had been convicted of several murders. His modus operandi matched the circumstances of Kathy's case: abduction, extreme violence, and disposal of the body in a remote area. Lockhart's capture came after a long and complex investigation involving multiple law enforcement agencies. His crime spree,